Christian parenting. You're listening to the All Mom Does podcast from All Mom Does and part of the Christian Parenting Podcast Network family. I'm Julie Lyles Carr, your host. I am a mom of 8, a best-selling author. I have been married to my husband, Michael, for quite a while now, and I am so glad that you are here. The All Mom Does podcast is just for you. It is to speak directly into your life where you are raising those kids, trying to foster that great romantic relationship, building up that career and the faith journey you're on. This is a place where you're going to find inspiration, information, resources, and community here at the All Mom Does podcast. Today on the All Mom Does podcast, I'm Julie Lyles Carr, and I have Lisa Bevere in the virtual house. Lisa, we have been wanting to have you on the podcast for such a long time. Tell my listeners who you are, where you live, the family, and what you have been doing in your career and life, because it's been a multi-layered one.
That was a massive question. Okay, so who I am a Sicilian grandmother. I have 4 grandchildren, 2 grandsons, 2 granddaughters. I am the mother of 4 men, ranging from 34 down to 26 next month. And I am loving life in Colorado Springs. We've already had our first blizzard of 4 inches. I am still traveling and speaking, not as much and not international. Of course, I'm doing a whole lot more of this. You and I talking, we're now best friends through Skype. That works for me.
COVID has been a really interesting clarifier for a lot of people, and I'm seeing it be powerful in some ways. I'm seeing it be a real challenge in others, because I know in my own world, I've seen some marriages that have blown up as people have been spending more time together. And I've also seen people who all of a sudden have rediscovered some things in life, some pause in life, some things that they were kind of on the fringes for a while for them. Have you noticed some of that in your own life? I know that you still have been traveling and speaking quite a bit, but what about some of these pauses? Has this been a longer time period for you to be home than maybe you've had in recent years? Because I feel like, to me, every time I'm on the social media with you, you are all over the world all the time. So,
well, yes. So my husband and I have never spent this much time together in our 38 years of marriage.
Same, Lisa.
So we celebrate the 38 years in October. But I have loved this kind of time because Julie, my sons all got married and moved out. This is our empty nester season. And John and I are not just rushing from something to something. We have been able to actually spend some real quality time with one another. And here's the treasure. Julie, we have a ministry board that isn't just like, show us your finances. They're like, show us your life. And so they got in our face about 6 or 7 years ago, and they said, we love being on your board, but we will only be on your board, continue to be, if you guys go to counseling. And we're like, wait a minute, we're not fighting. Why would you say that about us? And they said, we don't want you to go to counseling after you have a problem. We want you to go before. And so you don't have a problem. And a lot of times people have not been given the tools they need to navigate what happens in close proximity. I think in close proximity, the things that are good get magnified and the things that are broken become more obvious. And some people have been so busy playing to their virtual audience and their virtual relationships that when they find themselves kind of on a lockdown with their actual relationships, gosh, they just don't know what to do. And it actually, I do feel like marriages are under attack right now. A lot of times people think if I can just get rid of the person, I'll get rid of the problem. But, I've been married 38 years. I know that's not how it works.
Exactly. Yeah. Mike and I have been married 31, and I find all of a sudden, Lisa, shockingly, because I still feel like a 14-year-old trying to feel my way around life most of the time. We've got women looking to us who not now just see us as peers or somebody a couple years down the road, like, how did you get through teething? What did you do about potty training? Lisa, all of a sudden, like, they think we're the adults.
No. Let's say it. It's not adults. They think you're old.
You're right, girl. That's right. No, you're right. Call me into account.
We just had this happen to us. John and I were invited to this amazing gathering of leaders, and they're all like in their 40s. And John and I realized, wait a minute, we're the token grandparents. We are here as the old people. John 61, me 60. And if we had, like, maybe that's not true. They actually went around the room and had everybody introduced, like kind of said why everybody was here. And then basically they just said, John and Lisa have been married almost 40 years and doing ministry together for 30 years. And they said, can you help us? And I realized, Julie, I realized I wasn't cool anymore. I'm not, even if I ever was, but like, I might have been able to imagine, hey, I'm cool. I immediately became the grandmother. They were admiring my gray streaks in my hair. But I found out that they don't need another talented, cool person in their world. We are surrounded by the best communicators, those that know how to hustle and make it happen. Everybody is on their Instagram saying, if you follow me, you can be me. Right. And they need some people that are older, wiser, who can say, listen, I am a mess. You do not want to be me. You want to be Jesus. And that was kind of my emphasis for godmothers, is that it's not just a mother. It's a mother that says, I'm going to lead you in paths that lead to godliness. Right now, we don't even hear that word. There's not godliness. There's all these other words that are substitutes that will actually never satisfy us. And we live in a day where everybody is a sheriff or an outlaw, and we need some mamas and dads. We need some people that are going to come alongside and say, hey, I love you. You're completely out of line. Right. Or I love you and you're on the right path. Don't be afraid to just keep walking forward.
Right. I was recently, back when we were all traveling and speaking more, I was at a parenting conference. And
it's a blur.
Yeah, it's a blur. It was way back when. It was 20 pounds ago. It was a long time ago. And I was with Emerson Eggerichs, Bob Goff, just some really great thought leaders, Phil and Diane Comer. And as we were speaking, we were allowing the audience to start bringing in questions. And one thing that was so fascinating to me, Lisa, was primarily this was a pretty young audience. These were parents with younger kids trying to, get into all the things and figure out how to set the path right. But the question kept coming up over and over, either from those younger parents or from the sprinkling of people who were a little bit older, saying, we don't have grandparent presence in our lives, or I don't know how to be a wonderful grandparent to kids that I have coming into my life. Where did we lose the art of grandparenting, and what is it costing us?
I think we've stopped valuing age and wisdom. We despise age. Everything is like the young. I think about in the book of Isaiah where it says, the youth have led you astray. We are a fallen culture, and a fallen culture's goal, and I'm oversimplifying it, is to be sexually attractive, because a fallen culture is all about sexual alliances, sexual leveraging, power. That kind of thing. Yep. And so if you're my age, if you're 60 and you look in the mirror and one day your butt fell and you're like, how did that happen? You're not going to have that sexual trade-off anymore. And again, I'm making a point by overgeneralizing things. Grandparents, if they're not valued, they're not modeled. Mm-hmm. And so, for example, my grandmother was not necessarily involved in my life. My mother's grandmother, my Sicilian grandmother, she would feed us and, kiss us hard and be really loud. And, that was kind of the thing. But what I've had the treasure of doing, having 4 grandchildren, is bringing them into my world and not just being the sugar grandma, but when they come to my house, we don't watch shows. When they come to my house, we do work together. Sophia and I, we cleaned up the entire backyard after the winter, all the different garbage that had blown into our yard. We worked together in the garden. I think that grandparents have this incredible influence of the weight of their words. And here's the lie. I love that this came up in this panel that you were at. See, older people have bought into this lie that the younger generation doesn't value them.
Right.
That they don't have anything to give, that because they don't know how to podcast or download an app or whatever, that they have no contribution. And so they're off golfing, they're off traveling, whatever. They're not turning towards the younger mothers. And then the younger mothers are getting a very mixed message from the older women that they can't be bothered. The older women, they're thinking, nope, they're retired. They don't want to talk to me. And so we're going to have to take a risk to actually talk about this gap, this age gap. What we see in Titus, where it says the older women must, it isn't like if you feel like it, must teach and train the younger women. So we have this mandate, I'm going to put you in my category, even though you're younger than me. We have this mandate as older women to pour into the younger women. I think it's become very inorganic. We've gotten weird. It's the 13-week Bible study on how to mentor a younger woman, and women get intimidated. So it's not really that. It's just saying, all right, who do I see? So if I'm speaking as an older woman, who do I see in my world that I can bless with something I learned the hard way? And if I'm a younger woman, looking at the older woman and say, who has the marriage I want to build? Who has children that have gone through teenage years and are on the other side flourishing and loving God and loving their parents and doing good in society? Where are those people? I'm going to align myself with those people. And it could be as simple as, I love the life you've built. I understand you. I don't want to be somebody who violates your time, but would you ever consider going on a walk with me? Or could I work with you in the yard? Or Can my husband and I have you and your husband over for dinner? Something like that. And we start to build relationships. I am convinced way too many people are investing all their time, all their energy into their virtual relationships. And these are strangers. You need people you can have face-to-face with. Even with COVID, face-to-face can happen, even if it's like what we're doing right now by Zoom or Skype or whatever. But you need people that when you're talking to them, neither of you are playing to some vast audience of strangers. But it's just the two of you having a conversation. And so when I was preparing for Godmothers, I was reminded of what happened to me when I was 30. So, half a lifetime ago for me, I found myself pregnant with my third son. God had told me to minister to women. Julie, I didn't like women. I felt like women didn't say what they mean what they said. I was thrilled to have sons. I was thrilled to be in a man's world. And my husband signs me up to preach at a Pentecostal holiness church. Well, I don't know if you've ever met me in real life, but that's not a good fit for me. I have like double pierced ears. So I was like, these people are going to kick me out at the door. And I cried out to God and I said, I don't even like women. I can't do women's ministry. This is weird. And God said, I like women. I like women. He said, Lisa, I love women. I created woman as the answer to the very first problem. And sometimes when I say that, people are like, you hate men. No. There was a problem. And that was, it's not good for man to be alone.
Right.
And God said, okay, I'm going to create woman. Well, look what's going on right now, Julie. Men are alone again. They're not flourishing. They're hiding. They're in basements. They're involved in pornography. They're thinking their virtual relationships, their virtual battles are more real, more engaging than what's actually going on. And so we as women need to say, well, does the mandate of God, does the genesis of our weaving, does the meaning of the why we were brought forth, that it's not good for man to be alone, does that still stand? Or do we say, well, men have oppressed women for a long time, so it's our turn to oppress them? See, and I know there's a lot of different theories. I know there's people that say because women have risen, men have been displaced. See, I think rising is a good thing. So I don't think women rising has displaced the men. I think men oppressing women for so many years have actually turned back on them, and now they themselves are disenfranchised and oppressed. because God wove the genders. It's not just husband and wife. God wove the genders so intimately that what wounds one wounds the other.
Yeah.
And what heals one heals the other. And so I think that we as women have a choice in front of us right now. Will we be women like Deborah that will begin to say, not just to the men, but to the sons and daughters and to our fellow sisters, has God not said? Right. And then people might be like, I don't know that he said anything. Well, I can tell you one thing he said. He said, be strong and of good courage. Be strong and of good courage. And the promises of God and the dreams that you had pre-COVID weren't canceled because of COVID.
Right.
Now, they may look different than what you thought, but God always gives us a promise on one side of the wilderness. That is something that we move into once we've gone through the wilderness. This is a time where God is removing obstacles and idols from our lives. And we need to be thankful for that. I love that you said in so many ways, it's a reset, refreshing, a chance to recalibrate what's important to us. And that's a gift. And so we need relationships and community. When it talks about Deborah, it said village life had ceased. Which is
interesting phrase.
Yeah, but listen to the description. The trade routes were shut off. Nothing came in and nothing went out. That's where we are right now.
Wow.
And it said the people were afraid to work their fields because they were afraid they'd be attacked. That's what we have right now.
Right.
People go to work. If I go to work, I'm going to get COVID. I can't go out of my house. So one version says village life had ceased, but all the other versions that I referenced said warriors were scarce. Until you, Deborah, rose up a motherly protector. And the Message paraphrase has my favorite. It said, warriors were fat and sloppy. Until you, Deborah. I thought that's COVID for sure. I love that. It was
that's amazing.
My soul.
Yes, absolutely.
Even the mess of chapter 4 and all the stuff that happened, what I love the most about the story of Deborah was that when one woman arose, and one woman spoke to one man and began to say, has God not said? So we've got the messy JL tent peg thing happening in chapter 4, but in chapter 5, it says the stars from their courses fought for Israel. So I just am believing, so my thing is, we're not talking about a godmother who waves a wand and pixie dust.
Right.
I'm talking about a godmother who speaks to you and you begin to rise up. And the very stars from their courses say, do I see strength and courage on my daughters? Do I see strength and courage on my sons? And they begin to fight on our behalf because everything that happens on earth is a reflection of what we see in the spirit.
In the heavenlies. I think part of where we as women, because here's the deal, we're always generally younger than someone. Now, my grandmother's 102, so I'm going to give it to her that maybe she may not have many people who can mentor her at this point.
Amazing. You've got some good genetics.
Let me tell you, and I tell you what's interesting, Lisa. She and I were talking a couple weeks ago, and she has this whole notion of, she talked about, you know about this bad flu going around. And I'm like, yes, Gigi, I know about the bad flu going around.
Gigi, I love that.
She's the cutest. And she was born in 1918 at the height of the Spanish flu. Yeah. So she has a perspective on what life was like and what her parents went through during that time. So she was a pandemic baby. And then she remembers also the Hong Kong flu during the 60s that we tend to forget about. But there was another period of time where America didn't shut down the way it has now. But at the same time, families distanced. You weren't traveling a lot. You weren't seeing a lot of people. Right. So her perspective's really interesting because she's like, yeah, I've seen it. Like it happens. And we forget, we get so locked in our own generation at times that we forget what has been before, what people have seen before. But I tell you something that has really been convicting me, and I'd love to hear you speak on this. Caleb was able to be a voice into the younger people he was leading, not because he kept saying, well, I don't know how to work this iPhone. Well, that's not how we did it back then. Well, that's not. Caleb, he had to wait till he was 80 to really fully walk into all the things he had prepared his whole life to do. But his statement to the younger generation was, I'm going to teach you how to fight. I know warfare. I'm going to take you into the land. I am just as vital and dynamic as I was. And God says of him, Caleb has a different spirit. Oftentimes, I see us abdicate the authority and the wisdom that God has infused in us through our lives, because we do make statements about, well, I don't know that I have anything to offer. It's so different than how it was when I was young. Or we reference all the time, well, back in my day. So how do we overcome some of that dialogue that sometimes becomes baked in as we do get older? And this is for every woman, whether you are 25 and you've just gotten married, you're still older and you have something to give to the 15-year-old who's in youth group, or the 30-year-old mom who has at least been through a birth and has something to say to that young woman who is just newly pregnant or just newly married. So this is not something that any of us get to, duck under the wire for. We're all older than somebody, and we're all younger generally than somebody. So how do we stay in that place where we are, I know we hate this word, but relevant so that we have something to give?
Well, I love that you brought up that Caleb had a different spirit. The different spirit that Caleb had is the consistent spirit throughout all of the Bible of those who follow God. They are very aware that it's not about them. It's not about their age. It's not about their race. It's not about their financial position. It's not about their experience. It is about the God who creates something out of nothing, can recreate something in me. And so it isn't about, do we have enough strength? It's that our God is well able. And so having a different spirit is this ability to look at my life and say, where is the faithfulness of God woven in? Where can I talk about where God was with me? That's what God said to the children of Israel. He said, when you walk with your kids, when you sit down, when you get up, while you're eating, talk to them about my goodness. And so I think we've made it so much a celebrity Christian culture that we're talking about our goodness. And then people are like, well, I don't have any of that. Well, most people don't. Most people don't. But all of us have touch points in our lives where when we operated in a different spirit, and you think, what does operating in a different spirit look like? You bless those who curse you. You do good to those who use and abuse you. Again, I'm not talking about enabling them to abuse you. I'm saying that you can love and forgive. I'm not saying you have to be restored into an unhealthy, ungodly, abusive situation, but you keep your heart pure. When all of the world says hate, you choose to love. When all of the world says deconstruct, you say, I'm going to speak to destiny rather than just reflect on somebody's bad history. We are a people who look at dead bones and call it a vibrant living army. We are people who speak to the unseen thing. And so that is something that I think takes spiritual discernment. It takes very little discernment to see what is wrong. We need the people who have the discernment to say, this is what I see going on. I'm going to speak to how to make it right. I'm going to speak to the light at the end of the tunnel and stop telling people to read the graffiti on the walls. That is where we are right now. We need people who say, yeah, those giants are big. I read about them on the walls, but our God is bigger. That's that light at the end of the tunnel. And so I do think right now that too many people are valuing the things that are trends.
Right.
The way we're doing apps right now, the way we're doing whatever, that's going to change in 10 years. But character, integrity, godliness, faith, hope, love, being able to forgive the inexcusable, these are all things that are opposite spirits of what our culture has, in its mindset, walking in a sense of intimacy, walking in a sense of purity. So right now, if you say purity, it's like a negative word, but saying, you know what, I'm going to walk in virtue. I'm going to have a covenant. These are all things that people are saying, oh, none of that matters anymore. Well, we need to say, actually, it does matter. We look at the children of Israel as they're coming out of Egypt, getting ready to go into a promised land. They're hitting a lot of the enemies of our souls in tribes. And we don't kill people anymore. We don't attack flesh and blood, but we need to see what those different tribes represented. We see all this sexual immorality when Balaam said, hey, send your women among them, teach them this, get them involved in sex worship. This is going on right now. And the whole idea that I am my own goddess is ridiculous. I'm going to tell you right now, I was hovering over my espresso machine, and the last thing I looked like this morning as I was waiting for that espresso to come out was a goddess.
Just add caffeine, right?
Just a bunch of nonsense.
Lisa, you mentioned being out in the backyard with your granddaughter and having her work alongside you. And this is one of those things in mentoring when we talk about coming alongside someone and really learning from their life that I know I've gotten confused at times. I think it's something that we confuse in parenting. I could totally see how myself as a grandparent could be the sugar grandma. Like I could get real confused. I think about how the art, if you will, of apprenticeship has just many times evaporated, and it's not carried through in families. So I'm fascinated that you have been able to create this distinction with your granddaughter where you're not there to entertain, you're there to train. And that's not to say that you don't ever have times you entertain with your grandkids, but how do we get more in that mindset if we're really wanting to have these relationships where we are both speaking into someone's life who's younger and we're also having someone speak into our life who is older? How do we jettison some of this entertainment culture expectation and instead get more fully into the hard work, the necessary work, the good work of being trained up again?
I do think there's a lot of distractions. I think the distractions can get in the way of that. I'll tell you a really quick story about Sophia and Asher. That's my two oldest grandchildren. Every year I take them on Grandparents' Day in September to get a caramel apple. It's like a tradition. And so we had gone to get the caramel apple and, we'd had just, lighthearted conversations. And I just took a moment and I said, Sophia, is anybody mean to you at school? And she said, no one's mean to me at school. And then I said, Asher, is anybody mean to you at school? And he said, not at school. So where is someone mean to you? And he began to tell me about a particular person that was bullying him. And it was a female that was older than him. And so I listened to him. And Sophia, I could see from the rearview mirror that Sophia was getting really uncomfortable. And I said, Sophia, what do you do when this is happening with Asher? Do you stand up for Asher or do you go along with the big girls because you want to be included? So precious. She goes, I go along. She just began to weep. So you have these moments. And the reason why I told that story is there's questions that you need to be asked. You don't always want to answer. And you need somebody that is in your life who loves you, that will ask you the questions you don't want to answer and tell you the things you don't want to hear. That's not because they want to be mean. That's because they want to see you grow. And, we need people in our lives. And this is what, in my mindset, a godmother is. A godmother is someone committed to your growth. And they're going to come alongside you in your hardest seasons. And they're going to say, baby girl, you know what? You may be weeping in this moment, but you just stay the course and you will find laughter and strength in your future. They're the ones that can come alongside and say, man, this sounds terrible. One of the most effective, powerful woman ministers who is also a pastor. I have been in her life it's just been an incredible, beautiful journey for, I want to say maybe 13, 14 years. And I remember her calling me weeping, saying, these people are talking horrible about me and they've lied about me all over and they've maligned my name. And she's weeping. And I just said, you know what? I can't even be upset for you. These people are a gift in your life. How you handle this is going to show God how you will handle things in the future. Their cursing of you is just a confirmation that God is going to do something beautiful and amazing with you. I said, I can't even feel sorry for you. God is going to use this struggle for your strength. And we all need people that will tell us that. But you know what? It takes some length of days. So a 25-year-old can say that to a 15-year-old who's crying about not being invited to something in high school.
Right.
A 35-year-old can say it to a 25-year-old woman who's pregnant and feeling miserable and saying, I've lost my figure. And she can say, no, let me just tell you, you are gaining. And then you've got the 80 and the 100-year-old women who can say whatever the heck they want to whoever they want because they have shown that they have lived long. And, I know that I know that I haven't done everything perfectly. There's just no way, but I have done certain things well. And well means in a healthy manner, which means when I made mistakes, I learned from them. Not only that I learned from them, but I told other people. And I think too many people right now have been pressured. And, again, you have to receive it. You have to receive that pressure to give an image of perfection, and they curate what they show. Now, again, I think too many people are too open with too many people.
Right.
That's not vulnerability. You know what that is?
Exhibitionism.
That's nakedness. Yes, exactly. And we have a voyeuristic society that will play into that. But man, when you let them down, they will kill you.
They will come after you. Yep.
They will come after you with a cruelty level. So I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about someone that comes alongside and says, I know you feel like that was vulnerable, that was naked, and let me help cover you.
Right.
Let me just tell you, that the people that are following that are not the people that are going to be able to move you into your next season. So let's work together.
Right. I love that you bring that up, because I do think we have confused sometimes the true nature of encouragement. And I love all that is out there. You and I both, having worked with women, we know women struggle so much with self-esteem, with a sense of worth, all of that. And I want women to hear loud and clear that they matter, their lives matter, they are special, they are precious to God. And we do need to be honest with each other, because if the only thing we're willing to receive, particularly when we are messing some stuff up or our headspace is getting in a weird spot, and the only people we're going to are saying, you're amazing, you're fantastic, it's all good, it's all good.
Right.
Sometimes you do need that very loving shove in the right direction, and that can be the most loving thing that can happen. Now, we spoke to this just a little bit, but I'm sure you have a bajillion people reach out to you on the DM saying, Lisa, would you be my godmother? And I'm honored and flattered when people reach out to me, and there's only so much time. Sometimes we tend to reach out to people who we do have some kind of public connection to and wish that they could be the mentor or the godmother in our life. How do we make sure that we're actually looking to the people who are right around us instead of thinking that a mentor has to be someone with a more public platform?
Well, I do feel like you can't really be what you need to be. It's transactional with people on my social media. So to be in transformational relationships, you need to have a relationship. Now, again, I have so many people that say, I read this in your book and it changed my life. Well, it's not because of me. It's because my books are woven with the Word of God. And the Word of God has seed in it that transforms lives. So, I can weave it into a practical story of my life. This is where that word or that promise or that correction or that course realignment happened in my life. But I do feel that people need to put down their phones and say, Heavenly Father, who is in my life that I need to pour into, and who do I need to reach out to so that I can continue to grow? We don't want to be like the Dead Sea where we only take in and we don't give out. Christianity, we give and we receive.
Right.
It's a receiving and a giving, receiving and a giving. I think a lot of ministers are crashing and burning right now because they only give, and then they're crashing and burning. And they've errantly used their platform to build themselves rather than use a platform to perfect the saints to do the work of the ministry. And so, sometimes I'm super flattered that people would say, hey, so I do courses with them. So I'll say, hey, you can join this course or you can be on this Zoom call. But at the end of the day, Julie, I'm not in their world enough to say, hey, how you just talked to your husband, that's not going to work out well for you. Or I see there's like a shadow on one of your kids, or, I see that maybe this is out of balance. So I do have young women that I do that for, that I have relationship with, that the Holy Spirit has put in my life. But you can't be everything to everyone, or really you're nothing.
Right. Absolutely. Same experience in terms of I have women I serve and I'm so thankful for that and so honored. And I have women who are amazing to me, who are spiritual mamas to me. And particularly in a season, my mom, I haven't talked a whole lot about this, but she now has been diagnosed with dementia Alzheimer's. And so when you have that relationship transition to something different, yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things that you've got to still remain in the space of having spiritual mamas in your life, even when you are someone who's being looked to as that older generation. Lisa, so many great thoughts. I feel like we could just go on and on and on. I just can't thank you enough for being on. Again, you've been one of my bucket list podcast guests, so it's just such a delight to get to have you speaking into our listeners' lives and into mine. So thanks so much for being with us.
That was a delight, Julie.
Head over to the show notes for links and more content from the episode today. And while you're on the interwebs, be sure and check out All Mom Does, an amazing resource and community for the season of life you're in. Come say hi to me on the socials. I particularly hang out on Instagram, and I'm Julie Lyles Carr there. It's so great to get to connect with you on the grams. I just love it when I get to hear from you about your favorite episodes and what's going on in your life and who you'd like to see as a guest. So head to the grams and say hi. A big thank you to Rebecca, our content coordinator, and Donna, our producer. I'm so blessed to work with these amazing women who get the episodes out each week. Be sure and subscribe and share and leave a 5-star rating and review. That's the best thanks you can give our team. It helps get the word out about the podcast. I'll see you next time on the Modern Motherhood Podcast.